this whole controlled demolition, this is the cloud pivot strategy. You've probably covered this before in the past, but it's a double-edged sword. And what you see happening, the gradual erosion of personal liberties and freedoms, is a very calculated effort. So I'll leave it at that. As far as blockchain technology, when we look at some of the digital assets, I've said this many times, it does represent the greatest wealth transfer in history because the world is rapidly digitizing, and financial systems are certainly no exception.
This is Little by Little with Andy Schechtman.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Little by Little. I'm very psyched to have with me my two good friends, Versan and Vandell Aljarrah. Did I pronounce that correct? I know you gave me some tutelage on it, but I'm not good with names. Did I get that right, or did I butcher it?
You actually did get it right.
All right,
surprisingly, yes.
Good deal. Versan and Vandell are the proprietors of Black Swan Capital, a group that I've been honored to follow and to speak with quite frequently. You guys have been dead on a lot of your calls, so I'm psyched to have you back and to talk about it. How you both doing?
Doing great, yeah. It's always good to come on and speak with you, Andy. I mean, the conversation is genuine, it's authentic, and you actually know what you're talking about. We spend a lot of time talking to people, and the truth is we feel like we're wasting our time sometimes.
I agree.
It's good to speak with you.
It's always a pleasure. That, you know, sometimes it's in a lonely existence having the feelings that you do. And, you know, but that's why so few people really succeed in investing, you guys, because they follow the herd. They follow the herd mentality. And the herd is usually, you know, a day late and a dollar short. It's having the courage to have your own opinions and and that's one thing, but to get out on a limb like the three of us do and speak of these things to the world is a whole nother issue in and of itself. And I have lots of respect for you guys. And you know, the fruits have borne your conviction in what you're talking about. We're beginning to see a lot of the things you guys talking about have come true. So let's just jump right into it. And, you know, I think it's cool that two brothers are running a company together under the same vision. What inspired you both to establish Black Swan Capitalist? And tell me a little bit, not only about what led you here and lessons you learned along the way, but also what Black Swan Capitalist has to offer the public.
Well, then, Vandell, would you like to begin?
Yeah, sure. So before 2020, we had our own businesses. I was actually in banking. We decided to take a different path. He got out of his business. He sold his business. I decided to step down from a banking position, and then I went to an executive assistant position for a high-profile individual for an oil and gas company based in Dubai and Houston. Then I stepped down, and we decided, okay, there's some interesting things taking place here. We started to get intrigued with Bitcoin, crypto, digital assets, and Versan, his background is in engineering and technology. So he already had an eye for kind of spotting things that are, you know, changing the world. And we took a path and we decided to investigate more, research, digging deep. It's in our nature. And from that point, we decided, okay, we're going to share this with our family and friends, what we've discovered, what we think is going on here, because we started to put the pieces together after doing, you know, deep research and just having good instinct and judgment. And we were constantly telling people in our circle about it. And by the way, our circle is small, but we were telling family, you know, friends, people we know. And they constantly said, look, you guys need to just share this information. You know, you keep telling us about it. We understand, we get it. You go talk about it, you know, somewhere else. And we decided, okay, let's form a company together and a channel where we can get this information out to the public. And at the end of the day, we truly believe that if you're doing the work and enjoying what you do and you're getting paid for it, it's not work anymore, it's passion now. So it became a passion and it evolved into something greater than we thought it would be. And then we saw the momentum really start to pick up, and it just encouraged us to keep doing it. And we love helping people. And that's it. That's how it started, really. And Black Swan Capitalist, the concept and idea behind the name was to capitalize on the unforeseen and black swan events, because we believe that with every negative outcome and event and negative circumstances, there's always an opportunity. It's all perspective, you know.
You mentioned passion. I have been blessed with not hating Sunday nights as well. I think it's wonderful to want to get up and tackle what the world has thrown at you the next day, rather than, you know, ruining that Monday morning alarm clock will wake you up and you have to get back on the horse and do what you don't like doing. And you're right, it's neat being passionate about something. I couldn't agree with you more. It changes your life, and I would encourage everyone to, if I were going to tell young people what to do, it would be find something that, you know, ignites that passion in you. And it's easier said than done, but you guys have proven it's possible. So have a lot of the people I talk to on YouTube who have turned something they believed in strongly into a passion and have become very successful at it, as you two have. Now, I was going to ask you this question, but to ask you in a different order. But since you brought it up, Vandell, as the founders of Black Swan Capitalists, do you both anticipate some form of a black swan event affecting global markets in the future?
Yeah, I think the cost of servicing our national debt now is out of control. Interest payments are nearing $1 trillion annually. And this financial burden is immense and it's unsustainable. So eventually the system is going to have to collapse under its own weight. And I think when that happens, the question we need to be asking ourselves is, who's really going to bear the cost? And that really becomes a critical question. And the answer is very simple. It's the people. And yeah, when they keep, you know, this cycle of perpetuated by politicians and trying to present us with viable solutions, but in reality, there are no meaningful representations or real solutions for the average person. Instead, what we see happening is that these challenges are being exploited to align with new agendas, like the climate change agenda, which is promoting minimalism. And I mean, the rabbit hole goes deep.
I'm down at the rabbit hole waving up at you guys. So, you know, you can go as deep as you want. And I appreciate that. So let's just pivot it just a slightly. Let's put a little, and Vandell, I want you to answer on this too. Let's add to it. Do you think that Black Swan coincides with some form of a global reset?
Okay, I'll speak on this. So in my humble opinion, I believe a black swan event is inevitable, because historically, there's always a black swan event. And 99% of the time, they are engineered and orchestrated by the shadow governments and figures that control the monetary system through controlling the banks and the financial institutions. They all, you know, they fight on one side, but they're, in my opinion, two sides to the same coin, because they're shaking hands in the courtrooms, they're shaking hands behind closed doors. And if you really follow the money, which is something we do, you see that both sides are always funded by the same people that are fighting both sides. And, you know, culture wars, that's a whole other topic, but it's a military strategy, divide and conquer. With information and technology, it's even easier to do it today. But for a black swan event, I think it's inevitable. In my humble opinion, I think it's going to be closer than people anticipate. And I have my reasoning to believe that. And it's based on quantitative data. So not just quantitative data that's that anybody can look at if you can put them together, but the geopolitics taking place in the world. Remember, it's all tied together. I don't think these things are isolated. And for the longest time, the five conglomerates that control the media and the mainstream companies, they've been pushing various narratives, whether it's cyber attacks, liquidity crisis, currency devaluation, all kinds of different narratives have been pushed for a long time. And narratives are taught in narrative economic theory and behavioral economics. So narratives are really what drive the market and drive the events that take place in the world and the reactions, because at the end of the day, narratives pull the human emotion out of all of us. It's fear, it's greed, it's grief, it's optimism, you know? And as a reflection, the markets are a reflection of that psychology from human behavior. So narratives are very powerful, and they use them in their advantage to sway the masses. And I hate to say the peasants, but the retail average person that's unaware of what's taking place in the world. And the media, they don't report the truth. And you know this, Andy. They have an agenda and they push narratives, you know, for one reason or another. But ultimately, it seems the narratives have been building up for a couple of years now. Cyber attack is one. Currency debasement and dollar, you know, issues is another. Bond market, liquidity crisis, all kinds of things, geopolitical issues and instability in the Middle East, which conflict is such a great business for the defense contractors and
playing both sides, as you mentioned, you know, funding both sides.
Yeah, but most importantly, it's the debt. So, you know, since 2009, they cut rates, all governments collectively, to near zero. And then they had that Black Swan event that took place. It was the 2020, you know, thing that went down. But interestingly, the repo market was having issues right before they made the public announcement of the event. So basically, the system was having issues, and the story they came up with achieved multiple agendas simultaneously. And that's how they operate on a large scale. You know, they don't just try to knock down one domino. They have multiple agendas that are achieved at the same time. And the stories, the narratives, are the perfect cover-up to justify certain actions. What did they do in 2009? They took emergency measures. They cut rates, you know, they stimulated the economy with this tool they have called quantitative easing to artificially put life support into the system. And as you know, Andy, it's been dead since then, and they've just been pumping it on life support as long as they can. 2020, we had the same issue. They came up with emergency measures. The Fed stepped in, you know, the government stepped in, and they stimulated the economy. And from the financial markets to the actual economy and small businesses. And yeah, I think the bubble is just getting bigger. And a lot of people think a bubble has to pop, which it will at some point, but a bubble can grow into an even bigger bubble and an even bigger bubble. So we know what's coming, we just don't know when. And I think any great investor or anybody paying attention to what's going on will have a good sense of what is coming and that something is coming, but nobody can know when it's coming.
Nicely said, man.
I've always felt this connection with you two guys, and I don't know quite how to articulate it. There's something about you two that resonates with me, and you kind of just hit it on the head, Vandell. You kind of look at things the way that I do. What that means, I'm not quite sure, but I think I've always looked at them as crumbs that are dropped along the way, and you're calling it a narrative. But in and of themselves, these crumbs or these narratives are significant. Put together in some form of a pattern, you can see a much bigger picture. And I think that's what you guys have been really, really good at, along with doing your homework and finding passion in it. And I do the same thing. I am passionately, constantly trying to refine what I'm talking about and follow those crumbs. And I can see you two have done that very, very well. So with that being said, and we'll get to the crypto side of things in a moment, because that's really what your main focus is on, and XRP and Bitcoin and understanding the role that they play in the world. But I've also respected the fact that you both understand precious metals and the philosophy behind it. So with that being said, where do gold and silver fit into your investment ideology, and how do you balance them between things that can make you rich very quickly, like cryptocurrencies, and 5,000, 6,000-year-old wealth like gold and silver?
Well, first of all, I would like to top off to what my brother said. This whole controlled demolition, this is the Cloward pivot strategy. You've probably covered this before in the past, but it's a double-edged sword. And what you see happening, the gradual erosion of personal liberties and freedoms, is a very calculated effort. So I'll leave it at that. As far as blockchain technology, when we look at some of the digital assets, I've said this many times, it does represent the greatest wealth transfer in history because the world is rapidly digitizing, and financial systems are certainly no exception. When we look at the blockchain technologies that are at the heart of this transformation, it also enables the digitization of assets, physical assets. So there's certainly an intersection between what we see happening in the precious metals market, which will help provide this digital infrastructure and be anchored to gold in some way, form, or fashion. And this hasn't been revealed yet. So when we try to talk about this, people still don't understand it, not realizing that the technology like the XRP ledger, for instance, is enabling central banks, and this is already public information, enabling central banks to be able to tokenize physical gold reserves, which meet the requirements of Basel III requirements by the Bank for International Settlements, which explains why all the central banks are buying up all the gold, which explains why the central banks are actually adopting the Ripple net technology to enable the central banks to tokenize those gold reserves. So gold will certainly have a critical role in all of this. And you spoke with a gentleman the other day on your show, Matthew, I can't pronounce his last name. Yes, Pippenberg. He has publicly shared this in the past, and I had to do my own digging into this to discover whether this was actual fact or not. And, his word is fact alone, but he specifically said that the IMF in their articles were discussing that for this new digital blockchain-based system to work, it needs to be anchored by physical gold. So this just hasn't been revealed yet. And I think we're on our way there, but it comes in small stages. That's something Vandell and I began to realize because we were talking about this 5 years ago because the documents were revealing a lot of this information. So, I think we're just very early still.
You know how you just said, Andy, how do you balance the precious metals that have been around for over 6,000 years and this future of financial instruments and digital assets and blockchain? So the way I look at it is just as my brother said, they both serve a role in anybody's portfolio and in the new financial system, particularly. There's a reason that, as you always reiterate, Andy, there's a reason that central banks have been net buyers of gold since 2010. Ever since we had the 2008 financial crisis. 2009, they reset rates to near zero. And then 2010, they've been net buyers of gold, central banks all around the world, because the truth is the more gold they have, the higher the chance they'll have a seat at the table. Because the new system we're going to is likely going to be backed by a basket of commodities or precious metals. Okay, most likely both of them. We don't know how that will manifest or how it will play out or how they'll structure that, but it seems that that's the direction we're headed in. So as much as we value digital assets and the place they'll hold in the future, we understand that precious metals similarly have that value and that weight that will be transferred over. And we always tell people, look, if you're considering investing, calculated investing, being strategic with allocating, digital assets into your portfolio, precious metals, whatever, real estate, different, businesses that provide cash flow, you have to ask yourself this. Some people ask me when we're out, oh, what should I invest in? I saw this and that asset you were talking about 3 years ago is up so much. Should I put money in it? And that's like going to a doctor and saying, hey, doc, can you prescribe me a medication without telling him your condition? What's your condition? What's your goal? Where are you trying to get to? And investing is the same way with all these assets that we have access to, especially the newest asset class, which is cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. You got to ask yourself, what's your age? Do you have dependents? What's your financial goals, short-term, long-term? What's your risk tolerance? Because these assets, as remarkable as the price appreciations are in the shortest period of time, they're extremely volatile. So you got to ask yourself that. Do you have the visceral stomach, to withstand the volatility, and do you have patience? But back to your question, precious metals, specifically gold, I mean, the truth is, if it's good enough for Jinping and, Putin and the central banks, it's good enough for me. It's been around for over 5,000 years, as you always talk about, and you explain the details, the history behind it, Andy. So I very much appreciate how you articulate that to the public and for people watching, because that's so important. History doesn't really tell us what's going to happen tomorrow, but it gives us a good sense of how things will play out. And it's an important roadmap. And that's when I really started, when I started to understand that, that's when I started to wish I spent more time with my history teacher in school. So yes, gold has its place. And since we've been talking about this, Andy, and you've been on our show and we've been communicating for, years now, gold has risen significantly, and I still think it's suppressed. And physical gold particularly, you see this whole concept of own nothing and be happy is that not they just don't want you to own a car and a house. They don't want you to own assets, real tangible assets. And I think gold is one of the number one tangible assets they do not want people to own. Think about it. Central banks accumulating it extremely heavy, and yet they're on the news telling you, giving Michael Saylor, the guy of MicroStrategy, giving him the spotlight, allowing all the masses to pay attention to what's on the media and letting him say, yeah, buy Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve should replace their gold and buy Bitcoin. He literally said this the other day, and it's the dumbest thing ever. Yeah, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to lure in uninformed, unknowledgeable retail investors into an asset like Bitcoin that has risen since 2009 over 70 million% and has no fundamentals. Like, it literally can't do anything, And interestingly, the BlackRock institutions, they're all acquiring it, and the biggest holder is the government. And they're doing ETFs now. Well, that's a perfect way to control and centralize an asset if you really wanted to, while still getting retail in. And basically, like my brother always says, look here, not there, is what they're trying to do. They don't want you to pay attention to gold, real money that's been around for over 5,000 years. They don't want you to pay attention to the digital assets that are reshaping the landscape of the financial future, that are literally working with the IMF and the World Bank. The World Bank published a document in 2021 that Versan and I did some research on. We read through all the documents. It was close to 100 pages, and we spotted a section in this document they published in 2021. And we shared it on Twitter and YouTube at the time. And it was listed stablecoins, page 31. And in the stablecoins document published by the World Bank, there is a section there under stablecoins, and they specifically, in detail, talk about the use case, applications, and utility of two digital assets.
This is directly from the World Bank, where they specifically mention the whole stablecoin narrative being built on the Ripple network and the Stellar network. And by the way, when you dig deeper, and we followed the Bank for International Settlements in close detail, I have the document here shortly, they specifically talk about two kinds of money, and it falls into the taxonomy of the Bank for International Settlements of money, which is going to be private money and central bank money. And these are the two that fall into that category, and the only two that have been adopted by them. So this is another situation of look here, don't look over there. And that's why they're marketing the hell out of Bitcoin, because they know that most people are uninformed to what we're trying to explain here to your audience about this. And this is the true reality of what's happening underneath the surface. The transition is going into these technologies. And if I may, I wanted to add something to what my brother was saying about digital money. And it's very important for us to look at the bigger picture, because if we're going to be moving into a digital monetary system, we first need to have the conversation as a foundation about a digital constitution of human rights, because everything we do in today's world is digital. Our transactions, our business, our communication. And if we don't take those steps to protect these rights, we do risk losing everything. So I'm always trying to emphasize this, my brother and I, not to blindly embrace the digital systems, but to ensure that they're actually built with some sort of safeguards that ensure everybody gets, our anonymity, our freedom. Which is why I'd like to also pivot back to gold. And this is why Vandell and I are always emphasizing on the YouTube channel the importance of owning physical assets that are outside the digital system. Because when we speak to others in the space, many of whom you may know, it's very clear that they understand there may be a black market in the near future one day where if you wanted to trade outside the system, you would have that anonymity with gold and silver. And what's interesting is that if you try to do this, they're already selling the narrative that you want to trade outside the system. That's nefarious. But that's simply not true. People want privacy, and we need to fight to preserve that. And here we are embracing this technology. Even my brother and I were guilty of it, but we understand the pros and the cons. So going back to that digital wealth transfer we talked about, as everything is rapidly digitizing, and we're talking about smart contracts, we're talking about physical assets, precious metals, basket of commodities, currencies. You're talking about all the money in the world in some way, form, or fashion, maybe 10 years from now, 15, 20 years, right? But this is beginning now. So we don't even have that foundation as we're going into this digital system.
You know, you mentioned something about Matthew talking about the IMF. I don't know exactly what she was talking about, but I did read an article where Kristalina Georgieva, the head of the IMF, did indeed say that anything that would be a central bank digital currency not pegged to something would be just fiat. And when you realize the BIS reclassified gold as the only other tier one asset, to your point, I do think there will be some form of a marriage between blockchain technology and gold. You also mentioned misdirection. Look here, don't look there. It's been the topic of so much of what I've talked about for years, the art of war. Misdirection is incredibly pervasive all throughout the financial universe. It's more so than one would think. I agree with you completely. And I wasn't going to ask you this, but since you brought up the concept of safeguards, I have one question for you. I just read a report, which I'm sure you guys have also, that Google has unveiled a new chip called Willow, which it claims takes 5 minutes to solve a problem that would currently take the world's fastest supercomputer 10 septillion years to complete. I'd never heard that number before. That's a 10 with 24 zeros after it. Does that make you nervous just for a second in any way at all, that you got a computer that bang like that can crack any password? You know, I mean, what is that? I wasn't going to ask you this, but I just will pivot. What does that say for the future of cryptocurrencies and the safety there within, since you brought up safeguards?
May I comment on this real quick, Vandell? And I'll let you go ahead and take it from there. Well, first of all, I think AI presents enormous risk, because I don't think when you give technology to a very ignorant and uninformed population, you have a real bad mix over there. And it seems that technology is doing more of the thinking than the ability of human beings to critically think for themselves. That already is happening, and that's a very big problem. So technology it's eventually going to dominate us. And I've said this privately off record, that I think technology will be the end of us, really, to a degree. And if you look at what the World Economic Forum is trying to push with this transhumanism agenda, this is already beginning. People say that it's not happening. It actually is. It's accelerating. And the technology is growing so fast. And this opens also backdoors to many of the systems that we believed were here to safeguard us, or whatever we may talk about. But these are the threats that I think we're going to have to deal with in the future. Technology, it's growing too fast, and people are not responsible enough to control it. And of course, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, you look at some of the nefarious agendas that are there. They intend to use this new system powered by quantum computers and governed by artificial intelligence and scaled through blockchain. And that's pretty much what some people may call the QFS. You might have heard that word before. But yeah, it's very dangerous, I think. And also, if I may share one more thing, I was doing some research on Trump, what he was trying to accomplish. And I found this very interesting, and it kind of ties into it in some way. He's trying to now deregulate the banks. And with deregulation of the banking system, I found out with the key cabinet members he's put in place, they're trying to merge the banking sector with the crypto industry. And that is a possible backdoor for them to have exit liquidity as a bailout and blame it on the crypto industry before bringing in the solution that's already being laid out. So a lot of things are happening. I don't know how to tie that in together, but AI is dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I think this is all by design. This is all planned out, and it's interesting because when they released that news, coincidentally, billions were liquidated in Bitcoin. So it was a perfect timing, and perfect news cover story narrative, and now it's back up again. So. Basically, the ones that create the disaster always make the most money when they come and clean it up, kind of thing. So, but I do believe that's a threat, in the future. I don't think right now, but we're certainly on that path.
It's interesting if you look at Hollywood, just to add on to what you're saying, how they offer these movies like The Terminator or Minority Report that when they come out, you're like, wow, that's insane. And then you think about it to where we are now. And could we move to a period where robotics and AI actually have their own ability to think the way that AI is adapting? What does that mean? And you look at the Minority Report with facial recognition, predictive capabilities of AI, and the whole thrust of that movie was they could predict crimes before they happened. As crazy as those things are, you have to sit, makes you wonder. It's interesting just to think. I know there's nothing really there, but it's just interesting. And that's how far we've come down that rabbit hole. And maybe there's a fine line between rabbit holes and reality. I'm not sure. Let's pivot into one of your favorite topics, and that would be Ripple. I noticed yesterday that RLUSD, which is a US dollar-backed stablecoin developed by Ripple Labs, just received final regulatory approval from the New York Department of Financial Services. In your view, what sets XRP apart from other cryptocurrencies? What sets RLUSD apart from Tether or USDC, USDT, and USDC? And what sets XRP apart from other cryptocurrencies? And how do you see this utility evolving over the next decade? I know that was a lot, but I'm sure it'll be easy for the both of you.
Okay, so the RLUSD is, in my opinion, no different from Tether. The only thing is it's going to bring in that liquidity onto the XRP ledger. So like Tether brings on artificial liquidity into Bitcoin. Every time money goes onto Tether or Tether's created, interestingly, Bitcoin pumps. So with the RLUSD, it's going to allow more liquidity to flow onto the XRPL network. Now, the difference here, though, is, first of all, the XRPL, the XRP ledger, is more efficient. It's more efficient. It's much cleaner. That aligns with the green agenda. Okay, and it's cheaper to move value, to move money. You can move $1 billion and it would cost you a penny or a fraction of a cent. You don't need any intermediaries. And
that's got to piss off the banks a little bit.
Well, yeah, but if you can't fight them, join them. Is that what they say? So maybe that's what's happening. But basically, it's a more efficient network for moving value. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's more cost effective, and it's scalable, most importantly, because the amount of trillions and quadrillions of value and debt and money in the world is constantly expanding, and it's extremely high up there. So the network is very scalable. It can take on all of that, all those transactions, and it can scale. So the RLUSD will ultimately be, well, that's why it's getting regulated. It's one of the chosen ones, because why? They're going to use the XRPL network. It's been chosen long ago. And that's the difference between, Tether and, the Bitcoin network, for example. They want retail to get into Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin, but they don't want you to pay attention to what the central banks and the financial institutions, who they're collaborating with and who they're working on projects with for the financial system and how it's evolving. there's XRP, there's XLM, there's Velo, HBAR. They're all intertwined and connected, and these are different networks and different digital assets. But ultimately, I think the RLUSD is going to bring on more liquidity onto the network, more money onto the network, more value onto the network, just like Tether brings more onto Bitcoin's network.
Yeah. If I may, well, I think XRP is, first of all, XRP stands for Cross-Border Remittance Protocol. And I do think it's necessary to inform your audience that Ripple is a private company. Ripple sells technology to banks and financial institutions, the same ones that are, targeting them through the SEC. This is, again, misdirection. Look here, don't look over there. They're attacking the same company, Ripple, while they're adopting the technology that Ripple is selling them. It's called RippleNet. RippleNet happens to use, if you don't mind pulling up this chart I have here. Thank you. So RippleNet uses one specific digital asset to move the value amongst the central banks, amongst the financial institutions. Those are the people who control all the capital and the flow. So it's not your average cryptocurrency. And what the institutions did was genius. They mixed in groundbreaking technologies that were going to be adopted and mixed in with about 29,000 other cryptocurrencies that were considered really scams because they were built on an Ethereum protocol. ICOs, initial coin offerings, with no use case, no utility, trying to compete with what's already been adopted by the banks. So what is XRP exactly? XRP is a cross-border remittance protocol, and it's really considered to be the plumbing of the new financial system that is being put into place to replace the crumbling infrastructure that already exists. And that's why my brother said it was designed for infinite scalability. Because as more value moves, and we're talking about all the value in the world in some way, form, or fashion, tokenized assets, securities, derivatives market, bonds, even the bonds, the Treasury Department talked about tokenizing bonds they didn't mention the XRP ledger, but it's the only one they're working with. So all of this value is going to be going back and forth. And that's what drives the price up to climb to meet the demand for the liquidity that is necessary to settle all these transactions, to bridge these financial ecosystems, what the BRICS nations is trying to accomplish with their payment system, what the new development bank is involved in. So all these ecosystems can be bridged through the interoperability that this digital asset provides. So it's considered to be the backbone of the new financial system and the backbone of a tokenized economy. Recently, what is RLUSD? RLUSD is a stable coin, going back to that document we showed you from the World Bank, saying that only XRP and XLM, so whatever was issued on the XRP ledger right now, which is RLUSD, is the chosen one, if you will, that is right now considered to be the digital dollar. And RLUSD is real USD, real dollar. So this is where things get really interesting. When you actually look into RLUSD, it's essentially a tokenized version already of the United States dollar. So when we break this down, what is a central bank digital currency? A CBDC is a digital currency that is issued by a central bank. And since the dollar is issued by the Federal Reserve, and RLUSD is the tokenized version of the US dollar, in essence, a CBDC, which is, again, a liability of the bank. And that's already in motion now. So RLUSD is your CBDC. They just had to change the name because it avoided the negative stigma that surrounded the CBDC. And it's funny because here we are embracing it, and myself included, right? But exactly, that's why we hold the XRP, because we understand, again, the pros and the cons, right? The value in some way, form, or fashion still goes through the XRP. RLUSD is not an investment. It's a stable coin. It's a tokenized version of the dollar. It's a CBDC, essentially, in my opinion.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. I don't fancy myself as even a neophyte as it pertains to things like this. And the only reason I have any exposure to it at all is because of guys like you and a few others whom I have spoken to and gotten to know in the industry through my YouTube podcasts that talk about XRP, and I thank you for that. But it's an interesting. I'd like to get your thoughts on the fact that just looking at the basics of this new dollar stablecoin and the similarities between it and Tether, the USDT and the USDC from Goldman Sachs. I see one thing in common. And that one thing in common, aside from which one is better, I'm not passing judgment on that. But the one thing in common is that they all are invested very substantially in U.S. treasuries. The one thing that I find ironic by all of this is that so many people buy these assets to flee the legacy system, but inadvertently are supporting it. What's your view on that?
Versan and I are very conscientious of where things are going, and we don't like it, okay? But we understand that we're living through a pivotal moment in history where a wealth transfer is taking place. And within this wealth transfer, it's a short window. We could say it's a decade, a couple of years, but the point is, these assets, some of them, are going to be remarkably higher in value and price because of their utility and applications for the new financial system, the world economy. And we understand that. So we understand also that the window is a short window of opportunity where we can actually acquire these and have an edge over financial institutions. At the moment, that may change in the future. Once prices get high, you might have to be an accredited investor. Eventually, they'll take them off the market. Anything can happen. But right now, any retail investor has access to these assets, just like an institution would. It's the first time in history it's ever been like that. And we understand that this wealth transfer is truly a wealth transfer because these prices are so low for some of these assets, yet the demand is so high and will continue to grow from financial institutions and governments that it will result in a remarkable wealth transfer in anybody's life if they own some of these assets. But at the same time, that's what we're interested in. It's about the wealth opportunity to capitalize on that. Because at the end of the day, we buy gold and precious metals as insurance. It's wealth preservation for us, But this asset class, crypto and digital assets, is the best risk-adjusted reward asset in the history of mankind. Because you can literally invest a small amount of money into some of these digital assets with such high utility and use case for so cheap. And in such a short period of time, you can make a remarkable amount of wealth. So it's an opportunity of a lifetime. And I think it's almost equivalent to the dot-com era when people were calling the internet a scam and a fad, at one point in time until things evolved, regulations came in. As a matter of fact, all the big tech companies that disrupted sectors in the whole world of the economy actually all got sued by the SEC because that's what they do. If you're disrupting sectors in the economy and businesses that the conglomerates have a hold on, well, they're going to crack down on you in order to control it in some form or fashion. And they do that with the mafia enforcing. And that's the SEC right there, okay? They're the enforcers for the big mafia families, okay? And what they do is they come after you, they sue you, they scare the crap out of you, they regulate you, they take control over it, and then they let it flourish, and eventually it gets adopted. Just like today, everybody has internet, unless you're in the third world undeveloped.
Brother, the internet's a fad.
Yeah, this is where it's going.
Yeah, I pulled this up. Thank you, Andy. I want to kind of pivot back to Tether very briefly.
So what does this mean when it breaks its peg?
When it breaks its peg, it means it's no longer one-to-one with the dollar like it's supposed to. And that's
And that's a pretty sharp decline there.
And by the way, this is not the first time I've reported it. For years, I've been reporting Tether and the instability. Just like I called FTX, the collapse of FTX, I was 6 months early on calling FTX because of liquidity issues. Nobody noticed. I kind of forgot about it. It crashed. And then 1 year later, we found out where the money was going. It was going to Ukraine and, the World Economic Forum and whatnot, and Biden administration. So When I started researching this, Tether has avoided multiple financial audits, very similar to what happened with Bernie Madoff. Tether also maintains a very close relationship with the United States government and is one of the largest buyers of U.S. bonds. So Tether does play a very pivotal role in the complex interconnected system with Bitcoin's a very high price. And what years of research have actually done is revealed that there's that revolving door again between the bond market, Bitcoin's price, and Tether. So when countries are actually offloading the bonds, like what we've seen with the BRICS nations, they've been selling their US bonds, and Tether seems to be the ones who are buying them to offset the loss of confidence in the bonds. And in turn, this gives the United States government the confidence that's not really there, the confidence to issue more debt because of Tether's actions. All right. And they use that newly issued debt to artificially inflate Bitcoin's price through strategic purchases of Bitcoin. And that is the bubble. Nobody sees it, right? But that's really what's going on.
One popping of one bubble bring down the other. In other words, if the treasury market were to collapse, what does that say for Bitcoin?
I think it would have a dramatic retracement. Maybe it'd become a thing of the past. Who knows? But I'll tell you one thing, Andy, and we've confirmed this for years. The banks are promoting, marketing, and touting one thing, and they're doing something entirely different on the other side. And the fact that, again, most of the population is not informed on digital assets and the whole revolution. And this is why when I'm at a restaurant with my brother or we're out somewhere, I'm always asking people, do you ever invest in crypto? Do you guys, and they're always like, you mean like Bitcoin? That's not an accident. That's marketing.
Programming.
So, programming, exactly.
Yes.
You call it what you want, right?
I do want to mention something, Andy. Although I do believe that in 2025 we're going to see some remarkable price appreciation in a lot of these cryptos and digital assets. This is officially going to be the altcoin season, the bull run of the bull runs within the super cycle. It comes every 4 years, and for different asset classes, they have different lengths of their cycles. Crypto, it's a 4-year cycle, like clockwork. So every 4th year of the crypto cycle is when the most amount of gains and asset appreciation takes place. And that takes us to 2025. And interestingly, just in the past month, we're starting to see that momentum pick up. So we've been saying this for a while, but the 4th year too is going to be very good for people that are, holding some cryptocurrencies or digital assets. But there's something that's important to note. We take advantage of the 4-year cycles because historically every 4th year after the big bull run, the altcoin season where prices just shoot up phenomenally, there's a crash. So we take advantage of that, but at the same time, I have a portion of my digital assets that I do not touch. This is for long-term when utility kicks in and global adoption. I might give it to my grandkids. I just don't touch it, because you do want to have some skin in the game. Because as Versan said previously, the utility and global mainstream adoption is taking place as we speak, but it has yet to fully take effect. We don't know when that will happen, but we're in the process of it.
Right. Well, I'd like to add to what he said. The fact that Trump is also deregulating the banks and the merging between the crypto industry and the banking sector, that's the first step. Because if the banks are going to be merging with the crypto industry, you're going to need 100% regulation. And if you look at his cabinet, they're all pro-crypto. He's also spoken about being pro-crypto capital of the world. So he's already setting the stage for the banking sector to merge with the crypto industry, which is, of course, very positive for the crypto industry. So when you have the banks again merging with the crypto, you're going to have regulation. When you have regulation, what follows shortly? Institutional money. And that's how you get your bull cycle.
I think they're going to print more money.
That too, of course, they have to, because our economy depends on cheap money. And we're starting a new war again. So
no, everything you're saying makes great sense. You mentioned the BRICS a few times, you guys, and just a couple last questions to ask you. This has all been fascinating. And just as a side note, and this isn't financial advice, if you were going to name a couple, if you have the ability to do this, and I don't know if this is something you feel comfortable doing, but if you were going to tell someone watching this a couple of cryptos to watch heading into 2025, what would they be other than XRP?
May I? Well, XRP is one, targeting cross-border payments. XLM is another. XLM, it's a peer-to-peer transaction system. XDC, it's called XinFin Network, focusing on trade finance and global supply chain efficiency. Our supply chains are disrupted. Algorand, ALGO, they're focusing on smart contract platforms. They're designed for scalable, secure, decentralized applications. Another one, undervalued extremely, is called Hedera, HBAR. And they have a consensus algorithm with enterprise-grade decentralized applications and high speed that is very complementary to what XRP is trying to accomplish as well. And then another one, it's called Quant, QNT, which focuses on interoperability across different blockchains and other financial ecosystems. And bear in mind, the bigger picture, all of this is still interoperable and complementary to what the XRP is doing. So it's all kind of centered around it, built around it, bridged to it. So those are the ones we're invested in. And there are two others, SHX, which is Stronghold Token. One of their biggest investors is Ripple itself. And the other one is called Velo, VELO. Velo is a credit and debt issuance protocol that is being issued on the Stellar network to benefit the XLM holder. So that's a credit and debt market, which is completely untapped, undervalued. It's just getting started. So those technologies, we have thoroughly invested our time and research into it, and we've come to the same conclusion. They are complementary. They do have a use case, and it's nothing like what you see being built on the Ethereum protocols and the Bitcoin forked. So
I appreciate that. All these are easily purchased on typical places like Coinbase.
Not all. Uphold. I think they
Uphold.
restrict them on some exchanges, making it harder for you to access. They're putting regulations now in England. They're putting regulations in Canada to restrict you from being able to buy these. I wonder why. But
Yeah,
you
which
can
is
buy
the
most of them
merchant
on Uphold.
system.
Uphold
Right.
is the best platform to purchase these assets.
Right on. You've enticed me. I'm going to have to go check all of that out when we're all done.
We got you covered, man.
I love you guys, man. I like I said,
Likewise.
there's something about the two of you that has resonated with me from day one. And I think it's because you guys are far more logical and pragmatic than a lot of the mantra I hear coming out of the crypto space. You see both sides of the coin, no pun intended. You are able to balance your beliefs, your aspirations, and your research with other ideas. And that's what separates you to, in my mind, from a lot of the people I talk to, in that, people who are focused solely on their own mantra learn more and more about less and less till they know everything about nothing. They become experts about nothing. And that's one of the things I respect about you. And that's one of the things I try to do, have an open mind. As someone who's had a hard time rationalizing, if I can't hold it in my hand, it's hard for me. But yet I understand after listening to the research and the logic that you guys put forth, it's compelling. And my hat's off to you both. Kudos. And as long as you haven't beaten the shit out of each other yet as brothers, you guys are doing all right, but that's all right. That's what brothers do once in a while.
We might do a YouTube video on that, though.
Yeah, man. Well, just a couple of last questions for you. You mentioned the BRICS. As you both know, I've talked about that for a long time. And so there is speculation about XRP's potential role in the BRICS financial strategies. What's your perspective on this? And do you think XRP could integrate into such global frameworks with the BRICS?
I'll let you answer this, Vandell, but I'm going to answer absolutely while I'm pulling up a document that I have from the Atlantic Press Council, who covered the Central Bank of Russia. And it's hard to get information from Russia and even Hong Kong. It's very hard. It's not easy. And we've done our research to find this. Now, I do have other context to support my claim, because we do believe that the BRICS is, okay, number one, Trump just made a threat to the BRICS, right? But if you look at the BRICS nations, including Brazil, India, China, you actually do have public documents, and we have them right now upstairs in physical form, of the Central Bank of India working with Ripple, of the Central Bank of Brazil working with Ripple, The new development bank we found through a connection through SoftBank working with Ripple. I have a document right here from JP Morgan, for instance, working with Ripple. So Ripple is the only technology they have is called RippleNet, which again uses the XRP. So when Trump is making this threat to the BRICS, and now he has the RLUSD to support his claim and extend the dollar's influence and reserve status without hurting the dollar, it looks like a viable solution that XRP, again, being a way in and out for central banks, out of the dollar, in of the dollar, around the dollar, if they like, without posing a threat to the US dollar. That works. That works for everybody.
But that's the key that I think you've just unlocked, at least the first door to me to go through and say, whoa, because you are now adopting a new technology that is revolutionary, yet it doesn't disrupt the underlying currency. That's a really important thing I wanted just to highlight there.
Yeah, of course. And I do have the document if you don't mind. So I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit, but the devil's in the detail. And Vandell and I are very good. And one thing we're really good at is doing research. And here it says, based on and this is from the Central Bank of Russia. This is like somebody reporting on the Central Bank of Russia from the Atlantic Press Council. And the Atlantic Press Council, they don't mess around. They work very closely with the IMF. Based on research results, it was concluded that the Ripple platform could be considered as a basis for starting to work on creating a system of cross-border settlements and providing the following organizational, legal, and technical issues are resolved. The XRP would be used, transfers of equivalents of fiat currencies issued by each participant bank. They're talking about issued by participant banks as stablecoins. That's now being built. We saw the first one. So you can expect a real yen, a real euro, even a real ruble, which works for everybody. It provides a solution for everybody. So this is strategically and coordinated how it's being revealed and released with the press releases that aligns with the direction of not just President Trump, but the global landscape. Everybody wants to have their solution outside the dollar. And this is
Can I stop you for 1 second and ask you a question that just popped into my head? So this is all fascinating and makes the greatest amount of sense.
Yeah, no.
Can they sanction a country? Can the West sanction Russia and say, no, you're not allowed to use this ecosystem, or is that beyond their ability?
I have a theory on this, but you go ahead.
Well, I'll finalize my theory real quick. On the XRP ledger, right, which is it's built on RippleNet. The XRP ledger, you can build other payment systems that are also still using the XRP. So when you look here at creating a system of cross-border settlements, well, if you follow what the BRICS nations are doing currently right now, they are developing a blockchain-based system, which will have some relation to gold, but it's blockchain-based. So where are they building it? Well, it says here, Ripple platform, that's RippleNet, can be considered as the basis for starting. So of creating a system. It says it right here. So for me, I try to bridge words together and make sense of the words. And bankers try to make things look complicated, but it's really something so maybe simplistic, you know? Vandell, sorry.
Yeah. So basically, this is not an opinion. This is a fact. The new digital financial system that we're going to is going to be multipolar.
Yeah.
So there's going to be multiple systems in place that are interoperable, where they can communicate and work together. And every nation is going to have their own digital version of their currency. So what this is going to do, if we're comparing it to what we have today, right now we have an outdated system where, the United States of America and the world reserve currency has this tool called sanctions, and it's really control over other nations. There will be less friction in the new system because of the interoperability aspect, where all countries will be. You ever heard level the playing field?
Sure.
Here's the really sad part about it. People think it's leveling the playing field for the people. It's not. It's leveling the playing field for the countries, the nations.
Governments, right.
That's the truth. So everything will be flat, level playing field for the nations around the world. It's not for the people like you and I, okay? As a matter of fact, the wealth gap is just going to only increase, and then people are going to be invited into a system. When there's a problem, they'll have some solution, and we'll think we're getting the upper hand, but in reality, we're getting locked. into a centralized trap forever. And that's the truth. So the level playing field is for the countries, and the blockchain technology, XRP, other tokens, and blockchains are going to play a pivotal role in making that happen.
Yeah, and that's why you need gold.
You guys are so smart, man, and you're good guys. And to me, I don't care how smart
too,
you are.
brother.
You're two guys I'd like to hang out with and have dinner with and get to know a lot better. You just exemplified what I think is important, and starts with being good people, and that's who you both are. And I'm honored to call you both my friends. Nothing I wouldn't do for you guys. I want more people to check out what you have to say. So what's next for you in the Black Swan Capitalists, and how can people stay connected with your work? Of course, we'll post links to your YouTube channel, and you're all over Twitter and LinkedIn, and we'll post all that. But what is the best way to stay in contact with you, and anything new on the horizon that we should be aware of and looking out for?
Well, we have Black Swan Capitalist. We have the website, so people are welcome to send us a message there. Get in touch with us. We do offer one-on-one coaching and consulting for individuals to really teach them, wealth preservation, kind of analyze their portfolio and understand the technology much better so that they can capitalize on this digital wealth transformation. So that's something we do offer. There are one-on-one Zoom calls. You could go to our website. And we also do have two channels. We have the Black Swan Capitalist channel, and then we have a separate channel under my name at the moment. And we're both on Twitter, also known as X.
Right on.
Yep. And we love what we do. We're very passionate. So for anybody who does reach out to us, the experience is going to be very fruitful, and we're going to be able to cover everything. And even some people like to go down these rabbit holes to find out more information about what exactly is going on right behind the scenes. And we can cover that too, but we try to bridge everything to the surface level conversation as well. And of course, where we're going. So
Awesome. You guys, it was a wonderful hour.
Always,
I hope to
Andy.
do it again with you. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being a friend. And I look forward to picking up where we left off. Look, in the meantime, if we don't speak, I want to wish you both nothing but the greatest holidays season, and 'tis the season, and a very, very happy, healthy New Year to you both and your families. I do look forward to picking up where we left off very soon. And just thanks for dropping in, you guys. You guys make a very compelling, articulate, thought-provoking case. I hope people got a lot out of it. I did, and I look forward to researching this on my own a little bit better, because I think you provide a really good argument for this being something everyone should have their dip their toes in to one degree or another. So for what it's worth, thank you very much, and I look forward to chatting with you guys again real soon.
it's an absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Andy.
See you guys.
Thank you, Andy. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Little by Little with Andy Schechtman.